Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche Podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Use code DNVR when you sign up to get a bunch of amazing odds boosts. I'm your host, Rudo, joined by AJ Hafley, as we kind of are going to round out the at least internal Avs contract conversations today with mostly what are secondary pieces, kind of bit pieces to a certain extent that the Avs will still
You're
have
a bit piece.
I am a bit piece. It's true. Everyone knows AJ's the main squeeze here. At
I would like a
DNVR Avs.
soundbite of that. That was amazing.
We're all bit pieces.
In our own way.
We're all just specks of dust and nothing matters.
Okay, well, when you put it that way, I'd like to be a speck of dust with $22 million.
And a yacht.
Oh, yeah, I want a really big speck of dust for that $22 million.
Yep, one that glints in the sun a little bit. Anyway, the main piece, the one that is probably most interesting and probably the most likely not to remain with the Avs of potentially, well, I mean, there's guys like Calvert and Bellemare that are probably more likely to be gone.
But there. Sure. We don't have to start with Calvert because we can assume he's gone. They have an internal replacement.
That's pretty safe. Bellemare is probably the more interesting one.
So, Bellemare. Not a very good regular season. Not a very good series against Vegas. Great against St. Louis. How do you value that?
I mean, I don't think the Avs need to bring him back, full stop. But,
36 years old.
Yeah.
Cannot justify much more than about $1 million at this point.
I mean, realistically, you're looking at this year, and the only thing that you're significantly hopeful on bringing him back in is for face-offs and penalty kill.
Yeah, I mean, you're bringing him back to be the same specialist player he was last season.
Sure. I just mean like point production is pretty much out the window. Sure, he'll give you 10 to 15 points or whatever, but anything, expecting anything out of him on the offensive end is just a mistake.
And how much did that hurt them against Vegas?
I mean,
not that I don't want to put like the failures of the fourth line solely on Bellemare. That's not fair.
I mean, it goes well beyond just Bellemare.
But as the center of that line, he's literally in the middle of the action.
He's the one that is theoretically driving play on that line.
Yeah. Would they be better off with JT Compher as the center on that line? Would they be better off with Shane Bowers, Alex Newhook, one of the young guys in the organization?
I don't know if they'd be better for sure, but I think they wouldn't be worse is the way that I would put it. I think the floor to get to there that you're asking of anyone that is replacing Bellemare is relatively low.
Okay.
So in my mind, that makes him fairly easy to replace, at least as far as on the ice stuff is concerned.
And the specialty stuff, face off and PK.
Right.
Just not that important, or just too easily replaced by guys who have more all-around skill sets.
I think, too easily replaced, especially, look, a non-suspended Nazem Kadri is a significantly better face-off guy. Your penalty kill, you're already finding success with other people like Jost, Nichushkin, Logan O'Connor. There are just other options there beyond Bellemare, and maybe you get marginally worse on your second unit or third even PK unit of forwards. But
reality is Bellemare was not the sole reason for the PK success. As you mentioned, there's a number of guys who stepped into prominent roles on that unit this year.
Yep.
And it was a top 10 unit in the regular season, and I think the PK finished like 4th in the playoffs. Like right now, I think it's like 4th.
Yeah, it was very good.
Sheldon Dries, no. Sheldon Dries is not greater than anybody that finished the season on the Avs roster.
That is true. I don't have an argument against that. But whether it be Newhook or Bowers or, they could go any number of different ways. If they really wanted to maintain the same role, I think they could probably go out and get another 30 to 32-year-old center to replace him.
That.
I don't want them to, but you can essentially go get a better version of Bellemare.
Don't say that.
I've already said it.
You know what's going to happen now that you've put that shit into the universe.
I mean, I knew it was already coming. There is no...
That just means
It's Nate Thompson season, baby.
Take your pick. Go find your favorite free agent grinder to go sit in that spot. It doesn't matter who you take.
It's fine. Come on. Nate Thompson. Come on.
Sure.
What's Luke Glendening up to?
Yeah, I hear he wins a lot of face-offs.
Doesn't he have another year on his
think
deal?
So, yeah.
Oh, no, he is a UFA.
Oh, really?
Yes! Luke Glendening time!
Who knew that the thing that would finally get me up today and get me going and motivated
Luke
would be
Glendening.
Luke Glendening.
Well, the mysteries of the world never cease to amaze, I guess.
I am so excited. Dude, Luke Glendening, it's meant to be now. All that talk about Luke Glendening all last year, now it's got to happen. Yo, we have 15 points this year. Respect.
I mean, there's a dozen dudes in that price range even. Fuck that.
You mean $1 million?
Yeah. You could go get the other, I guess he's a RFA.
With the $1 million.
Sorry, I'm very tired today. In case my 7 yawns already during the show have not made that obvious, I am very sleepy. For that $1 million, are you better off just dropping an ELC in there?
I would. I think it's pretty easy to do that. Avs obviously seem a little tentative to play Shane Bowers for various reasons, but
at least if this is one of the roster spots though that you look at and say they probably don't have to do anything to fill it. The same thing with like replacing Matt Calvert. Yep. That's Logan O'Connor's job.
There are internal replacements that jump into that very, very easily.
Yeah.
So
it's because if we look at Newhook and we assume Newhook is somewhere on the roster next year.
Yep.
At the moment, I feel like that's a safe assumption. Before they start making moves and they start making decisions and dropping 19 veterans in front of him.
When dudes get signed, the math changes. But
yeah, but for right now, Newhook looks like he has an inside track to a roster spot.
Yep.
So before expansion, and assuming that they keep Jost and Landeskog, that gives them 9 forwards. Newhook being a 10th.
So they would have
and O'Connor being an 11th.
One spot to fill, which could easily be Kaut or Bowers or Wingerly if you want to put them in there.
Yeah. I don't know if Wingerly is they
right. We don't know, but
I don't know if he's in the center conversation or not. As a tiny little speedy dude, it could be a good time. It just feels like that's a recipe for a dude going 37% in the face-off circle and just getting smoked.
Getting caved pretty badly, yeah.
Yeah, don't know. Yeah,
Sampo Ranta could be in that conversation too.
Yep.
A lot of guys could be in those conversations for, but Bowers, Kaut, Newhook, Ranta, O'Connor, all of those guys training camp should be important for them.
Yeah. It's
especially because expansion will happen, and if they lose one of those forwards, or if they trade one of those forwards, whatever, then
there's another spot that opens up all of a sudden. and that's another one to fill. But
this is no Brandon. This is absolutely no offense to him, but I don't read Adrian Dater's website. I don't read The Athletic. I don't read the Denver Post. For me, they don't offer me anything as a reader. So again, I say that with no offense.
Right.
It's nothing about any of those outlets or any of those guys.
All respect to them, but we are also an outlet and we'll form our own opinions on said things.
Yeah, well, and like I have been remiss in the writing category. I've really dropped the ball since the season ended. My creative juices are totally empty. I'm spent. I need a few days kind of get my brain restarted properly, but I'm taking a road trip this week, so that'll help. That'll get me away from everything for a few days so I can actually get back on top of stuff. But anyway, I don't read any of that stuff, so I have no thoughts on it.
Yep. Continuing on with our topic of the day, when it comes to these more edge pieces, I mean, more specifically, the two curious pieces are Tyson Jost and Connor Timmins that need deals.
The two young guys who prove valuable.
Yeah, that are. You never know. Well, you never say never on a guy getting added to a trade, but as it stands at this moment, guys you expect to be on the roster next year.
Accusations of plagiarism. That's funny. The only time I ever know about what gets written on other websites is when people ask questions like that or send me links. I'm a voracious reader of content around the internet, not Avalanche content.
Yep.
So anyway, the Timmins Jost contracts I think are really interesting. The Timmins one I think is probably pretty easy to just go with a qualifying offer.
Just kick the can on that one.
Yeah. But I have also mentioned, I mean, he had 7 points in 31 games and no points in 10 playoff games.
Yeah. I mean,
like, it wasn't like he did anything where you're like, oh my God, a multi-year deal is something that they've got to figure out for this guy. Or even a significant raise has got to happen for this guy. Though that didn't happen. He had, and if we're being honest about the season that Timmins had, it was a rough start.
Yep.
And then it looked like he was gone for the year. Like he got hurt.
Second go of it is when he got much, much better at the NHL level.
Which was surprising because he got hurt. We all kind of just forgot about him. And Jacob McDonald played his way into our chaotic, loving hearts. And then Connor Timmins was back in business. And he looked so much better. And of those 7 points, I mean, several of them, well, 3 or 4 of them were of the wow variety.
Yep.
And he looked on a totally, now, granted, he was eating greedy a little bit at the end of the year against some bad teams that had packed it in. Those are NHL clubs. They're not very good ones. But if he's going to look like that against bad clubs and he's going to hold his own, he was respectable in the postseason. Especially the Vegas series.
Yeah, when the Avs kind of shit the bed, Timmins was one of their better defensemen.
Yeah, and that's as much a commentary on how the Avs as a team played.
Bad, for sure.
Which is something we talked about during the series. It was game 3 or 4 where we were like, if Connor Timmins is one of your better players, you probably played like shit.
Yep.
And that's, again, not a knock on Connor Timmins, but on your 18 skaters,
at least that dude showed up.
He can't be one of your 2 or 3 best players in a postseason game.
He probably shouldn't be in your top 5 best.
He shouldn't be in your top 10.
Fair enough.
So, but realistically, he held his own. He was he was okay. The underlying numbers aren't amazing, but they're also not disastrous. They were truly disastrous for both Graves and Nemeth.
Yep.
And for Timmins, they were okay. He held his own.
Here, while a longer term deal, try and get value on a guy may be enticing for Timmins, my problem with it is you look at the Avs defense. You have obviously Makar, Gerard, Taves not going anywhere. Those three for sure are not. And then you follow that up with a potentially healthy EJ, potentially Bowen Byram, and you're talking about Ryan Graves.
Maybe I'm still on the roster, maybe not.
Well, right. But I think that's the key here. If Graves gets taken in expansion, all of a sudden committing to Timmins a little bit longer term becomes a lot more interesting. But as it stands right now, do you want to be paying over $1 million to a guy that could realistically slot in as your 7th or even 8th defenseman?
If he's your 8th, who's your 7th?
I mean,
are you throwing McDonald in there?
Yeah, somewhere in one of the 2D guys that will get games. But
yeah, look, we still have to use words like potentially, because we didn't think that the Avalanche were going to go down swinging with Patrick Nemeth in the lineup when Bowen Byram was perfectly healthy.
Yeah,
and they made dumbass excuses to keep a potential impact player out of their lineup to go down with the ship on a guy that only produced self-inflicted wounds throughout the series. So, I don't think it's any mortal lock that Bowen Byram is in the lineup. I do think it's a good bet. I would bet really good money that if he's healthy next year, he plays 70 plus games for the Avalanche.
Yep.
But until, we still have to get there. So, and you never know what they're going to do in the offseason. You never know if they're going to say, hey, we want to add.
Comes rolling into the lineup. Yeah.
We want to add another bit. We want to add, Adam Larson is a free agent. Jamie Alexiak's a free agent. We want to add a little bit more of a rugged defender that can kind of play the Patrick Nemeth role, but actually play that role well enough with the puck on their stick that they're not a total,
disaster.
The guy's not a grenade launcher back there.
Yeah.
So it's a, they've got to kind of figure out that numbers game, as you mentioned, that Timmins could be the 7th guy on the outside looking in, depending on what they do.
For sure.
So I think that I'm always looking for ways to go and hunting value. And Timmins, if you can get Timmins to commit to a 2 or 3 year deal at $1 million, $1.2 million, by the end of that contract, you're probably getting great value. This year, you're running the risk of overpaying him. And when you're in a cap crunch, every $400,000 that you decide on any given contract adds up really fast. So, you could they could just throw a qualifying offer at him and call it good and say, go out and do something. We'll see what you do next year to earn. Or they could just give him a real deal. The QO route worked really well with Tyson Jost last year, so I think that's the smart play.
Yeah.
Just QO that dude and then
deal with it later. Yeah.
Yeah. And then if he performs to the level that you want to give him a multi-year deal, that's a good problem to have. And with Justin Barron already in the AHL and Drew Hellison likely turning pro at the end of next season, you'll have some other guys along on the way if Connor Timmins eventually prices himself out by outplaying that role and contract to a significant level.
Yeah. I don't think that's that complicated of a process, especially with Timmins, because he's an RFA. You can throw the QO at him and just leave it there, or if you get later into the offseason and you have a little bit of extra cash floating around, then you can look at potentially giving him that longer term deal. I see chat talking about Nemeth. I think the Avs analytics staff would probably walk out if they tried to sign Nemeth based on his playoff underlyings. But
so for the record, the Timmins qualifying offer would be $874, $125.
Yeah.
So just a shade under $900K. I think that's probably too good a value for them to try and
get
cheeky and give him 1.2 and try and get an extra year or 2 years out of it.
Before we get to the other side of this conversation with Jost, we do have to take our first period break. We are brought to you by Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR. You can head on down to the bar to get 8 different kinds on tap. Also, be sure to try their seltzers. Absolutely delicious. I know poor Canada can't get them, so AJ's going to bring some to Winnipeg. Hunt him down and steal them.
I should bring like a bunch of them and just like toss them out in the middle of Winnipeg.
Like a bunch of like 15 packs in the back of your car.
Yeah, and just sit at the corner of Portage and Maine, and just as cars go driving by, just flipping them out like, all right, beer for everybody.
There you
Fuck
go.
the pandemic.
AJ living the dream out here.
Yeah, it's gonna be like 90 degrees in Winnipeg, so I'm gonna have to do something to keep myself cool.
Yeah, that's toasty. The Canada's in a big old heat wave right now, aren't they?
I think a lot of us are about to be in a big old heat wave.
Well, fair enough. Colorado's been hot too, honestly. But also brought to you by Strava Craft Coffee, the CBD infused coffee that has changed life. If it's too hot for you, come get the cold brew down at the DNVR bar. You can get 25% off when you order for the first time online with code DNVR25 and 20% off going forward indefinitely when you get their subscription service. So jump on it. I feel like I need some of that every time after I golf because my joints all hurt because I'm bad at golf. But, you know. You can also sign up for a DNVR membership. The annual membership gets you a free shirt, gets you a mask, it gets you big beers down at the DNVR bar, access to the DNVR lounge. The list goes on and on and on. So sign on up for that. Help support us. Obviously, that's a great way to do it. We appreciate all of y'all people. If you don't want to do that, at very least, like and subscribe to the video. That helps us out a ton here on YouTube. Gets us going in that direction. Likes, subscriptions, both very important on YouTube. If you really like us, you can hit the bell and get notified every single time we go live. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, presented by that DraftKings Sportsbook. Tyson Jost is sort of where we are talking about Connor Timmins being next year. Last offseason, the Avs just gave Tyson Jost his qualifying offer. He showed up, and particularly in the second half of the season, earned himself a bona fide contract this coming year.
Yep. I like the idea. He gets a real contract now.
Yeah, right. All right. Slowly working down the house yacht DNVR subdivision fund. Another 100,000 years of super cats, and we'll be there. Thank you,
getting there.
Much appreciated.
Thank you for getting us one step closer to us having a home.
Nearly not homeless here at DNVR.
What are we talking about homes for? I want that $22 million yacht.
Well,
to just sit in the back of the bar in the parking lot so none of us can park there.
All right, yeah, but if we get a $22 million yacht, I'm making it my home. Like, I'm just going to live on it.
Not a bad idea.
Jost obviously stepped up quite a bit this year. 17 points in 54 games, but I think 13 of those came in the last half of the season at least.
The last 26 games.
So played his way into a role as well, obviously establishing himself on the penalty kill. That chemistry with Nichushkin has continued to flourish as a aggressive forechecking shutdown combination.
got beat up analytically in Vegas as he had to play over his head with no Nazem Kadri.
Right.
He was a de facto 2C, and guess what?
He's not a 2C.
Yeah. We saw that limitation there where he broke out offensively, and he had settled in really nicely. He was doing a good job against other third and fourth lines in a really good depth role. He was excelling. Got to the Vegas series, had to play up in competition a little bit, got crushed.
Yep.
Just wasn't able to handle it. Just was not able to handle it.
That's a reality you understand and live with Jost right now, though.
Yep.
So you understand his role as a third liner shutdown guy who he feels close, has always felt close to being able to be a bit more productive, but there was at least enough production there in the second half of the season that you can say, look, this guy has justified an extension. The question is, where do you go with it? You look at Nichushkin's deal and you say that seems expensive. Nichushkin's deal was $2.5 million for 2 years. But there's also the question of how much term are you looking at? Is this another bridge that keeps Jost as an RFA?
So this is his 5th year?
This would be his 4th year, I believe. Yeah, his contract slid the first in 16-17.
Yeah, so this is his 5th year.
Yep.
So
So you'd have to give a 1-year deal if you wanted to maintain RFA status.
you give him a 2-year deal.
Would he only be?
No, you're right. 1 year.
Yeah, because
I wouldn't worry. Man, I wouldn't worry about it.
Don't just sign him to what he's worth.
Yeah. I said when it got signed that Ryan Hartman deal, 3 years at like 1.7 or 8, whatever it was that Minnesota gave Ryan Hartman.
Yeah,
That's exactly the neighborhood of what Colorado should be trying to get Jost on.
Would be very happy with a deal like that, honestly.
He hasn't been as offensively prolific as Valeri Nichushkin, which is funny to say because that guy just disappears for such long stretches, but has not produced as many points in each of the last couple of years as Nuke. So I feel like giving him 2.5 is probably inappropriate. I wouldn't make any bones about 2, but I would definitely want multiple years.
I think 2 would be the hard ceiling for me.
Yeah.
Anything over 2, it starts to feel expensive. And yeah, if you're talking about a $2 million, I think it starts at 3 years. If he wants 1 point, if he wants less years than that, then the conversation becomes that 1.7-ish Hartman. If he wants 3 years at that number, I think that's great too, obviously. But it's weird to talk about these types of contracts because we're talking about less than $2 million off the Avs cap here.
Yeah.
But the reality is the differences in if the Avs can scrape out an extra $500K here, an extra $1 million there.
Yep. Well, you save. Say he wants $2 million and they get $175.
Yep.
All right. So you've saved $250K on Jost. If you could save another $200K here, another $200K there, $150K there. Oh, great. You've just carved out an ELC.
Yep. It adds up fairly quick,
yep.
Especially when you're talking about some of these cheaper ELCs. You know, if you can save $850,000, $900,000 on your cap, all of a sudden Martin Kaut fits in your lineup.
Pick an ELC.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
That's where
whoever.
You sneak the guy in there that has the best camp.
Yep.
You know, Sampo, Bowers,
Whichever
Kaut,
one. Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Whatever. That guy rolls in and just takes a job in camp. And you're like, all right, dope.
Easy enough.
So you do, like, it is important to kind of shave those numbers as much as you can. It's not critical, but it is more important now than in previous years.
But if you don't shave those numbers, you end up being Las Vegas playing 15 skaters at the end of the year.
Yeah. If you give in to every little contract demand, it's how you end up. Like, have you looked at Pittsburgh's cap situation?
I have not.
Yeah, so go look at it. It's kind of wild, man, because they've got 9 forwards making $2.6 million or more.
And they have,
and it's just like it's like a sea of $3 million, like $2 to $3 million guys. Where you're like you couldn't save $500K on any of these guys. Any of them?
5 defensemen making at least $4 million.
Yeah. You look at like they went all in on John Marino after 1 year.
Yep. That's pretty crazy. They're super locked in for next year.
Yeah. Like what do they do? They have, where do they make improvements? They're already what? $1 million. $2 million. Sorry, $2 million from the cap.
Yeah, and they have to sign at least one forward. I guess they could promote somebody, but they have to take another forward contract onto their roster.
Yeah. And that's where you look at a roster like that and you're like, look, this is where you have problems. We've said it before, the contracts that really, really, really hurt you are those mid-level deals.
Yep.
It's the $3 million contracts. And look at the 3 contracts everybody talks about the most in getting rid of out of Colorado. Donskoy, Compher, Graves.
Yep.
What do they get paid? 3.1 to 3.9 million.
Yep.
Those are the contracts that hurt you the most if you were in terms of like actually extracting value out of those. Because you're getting like they're thrilled with what they've gotten out of Donskoy for 3.9 million.
Totally.
And at the same time, they're not loving what they've gotten out of Compher for 3.5. And Graves at 3.1. I don't feel like he was overpaid that much. I don't think Ryan Graves had the disaster of a season that a lot of people did. The analytics will tell you that he was
solid.
Yeah, he was all right. Wasn't spectacular, but
I mean, here the thing is, even with Donskoy, who everyone's happy with what they got out of him for 3.9, you look at an Alex Newhook and say he could do that for a quarter the price.
Right.
ELCs are just such a powerful tool that it makes it hard for those mid-level contracts to be worth it.
Exactly. And when you have guys like Kaut, and you have guys like Newhook, and you have guys like even Ranta, maybe even Bowers, you're talking about middle 6 play here.
Yep.
You're not talking about high-end guys, but you're also not talking about bottom of the barrel of the league here.
Yep.
Bowers is probably the one with the lowest ceiling who probably will have the most limited NHL role. But those other guys should be able to be at least middle 6 caliber of players, and doing so for under $1 million versus multiple guys making more than 3. That's where you want to clean it out. And that's where it brings us to the guy that we really wanted to talk about today.
Yep.
Which is Brandon Saad.
Yep.
How do you keep him? Because I think everybody would agree at this point, Brandon Saad, worth keeping, was a really good fit in Colorado. Did everything that you wanted him to do. But coming off a $6 million deal, how do you keep him? A tough question.
He's going to have to probably take less, but we will answer these questions after our current second period break, as we are brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. My pick of the week, AJ, give me a good Rockies bet to go with, because it's Marquez is on the hill. Every time I bet for him over on strikeouts, it hits. So that's my go-to, but there are other fun options you could take. You could take a Story for a home run at plus 400.
Look, I just made a bet with Drew that the Rockies will get no hit at some point this season. We have a Breck sampler pack on the line here.
I don't think that's a bet that you can make on DraftKings specifically for the Rockies to get no hit, but possibly.
I don't know. Why not bet on Tapia to get a hit?
There you go.
He's hitting
keep the streak going.
Well, he's hitting over 300 in the last 6 weeks.
I'm sure you would not get great odds on that, but also there would be a 19-game hitting streak. So why not have a little bit of fun with it?
If I'm Brandon Saad, why would I go back to Chicago? What does Chicago have for me?
Yeah, going back to Chicago doesn't make a ton of sense.
Yeah, at this point in Saad's career, they've got Kane, Taves is supposed to come back, but out there on the wings, they have young guys that they want to invest in and guys that have played pretty well for them. I mean, DeBrincat and Kubalik have that's two of those spots right there. And then they, I haven't even mentioned Kirby Doc is somewhere in that top 6. And I don't know. I could totally understand why Brandon Saad would go and chase money somewhere. But why would you want to go back to a rebuilding situation that you had a sour taste in your mouth when you left?
Probably not a bet you can make on DraftKings Sportsbook is Brandon Saad going to Chicago. But you can head on over there, use that DNVR code when you sign up to get amazing odds boosts. Obviously, must be 21 or older, Colorado only. Other terms, restrictions, and conditions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Download their top-rated app now. Gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. Also brought to all of y'all by Hassel Cattle Company. They brought you damn good beef to go with our damn good beer. You can get the burgers down at the DNVR bar. That is the Wagyu burgers, which are absolutely delicious. If you want their other products, you can order those online at HassleCattleCompany.com. Get 10% off with code DNVR10, and you get buy 3, get 1 free if you want to buy 4 steaks of pretty much any kind, whether it be bone-in ribeye, you name it, all sorts of that stuff. Delicious meat. Go get your stuff. $200 orders get free shipping as well. So jump on that while you still can. And of course, brought to you by Solace Meds. That's SOLACE meds.com. To order online, you can get up to 20% off with code DNVR20, as well as great deals on other select items in store. Order online for pickup. Go on down to whichever of the 4 convenient Colorado locations are there for you, including one right next to the bar. So super easy. You can hit up double duty there. Go get your beer at the bar. Go pick up your other THC CBD products from Solace just down the road. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Brandon Saad. Look, there's no guarantee that he even has any interest in coming back to Colorado. But when you look at
who doesn't want to live in Colorado?
That right. I mean, that's
a weirdo.
I'm throwing that conversation out the window because even without the obvious everyone loves to live here, yada yada yada, the Colorado Avalanche are a team that if you want to win a championship, they're probably on the short list right now.
Yeah, if you're talking about teams that you think of as championship caliber teams that you really feel like this team has a real shot to win a cup.
Yeah,
probably 5 to 7 teams that you really feel good about. And again, the postseason is always unpredictable.
But yeah,
Dallas went to the Cup Finals last year as kind of a meh team, and Montreal is on the verge of repeating the feat. So,
and you look at those teams and you say, okay, well, Tampa has absolutely zero cap space. Vegas has absolutely zero cap space. So a lot of teams are eliminating themselves. And I'm not saying the Avs necessarily have enough cap space, but they have more than a number of other potential championship caliber options.
The Islanders and Penguins.
Yep. Pretty tight. Brandon Saad ain't taking a $3 million deal to go sign in Pittsburgh.
Like the Caps have like $9 million to spend, and they have to find they need another goaltender contract, and they have to sign Ovi.
Yep.
So not super big players there either. So when you're talking, and Colorado's cap space right now is deceiving.
Yep.
Kind of in the same way that I think Boston's is, because Boston has so many guys that they need to sign. Right now they have like half of a defense and no goaltenders.
Yep.
So, you know.
And look, as it stands, it's not going to be easy for Colorado to sign someone like Saad to a deal. It starts with the fact that Saad's not going to make $6 million anywhere, I don't think.
I'm really curious because
there's talk that a guy like Zach Hyman is looking for $6 million.
Yeah, that.
And in a world, in the pre-pandemic world, pre-flat cap when it was going up every year,
Sure,
I could totally buy that. I don't think that that's a preposterous thing to ask at all. In the flat cap world, it feels preposterous.
Yeah.
Just me personally, Zach Hyman's a really good player, but
it's a dude with a career high of 41 points right now.
And given some plum line mates over the last couple of years, he's really helped fill out those lines and make them good all around.
He's great in his role. Is a $6 million player? That's a tough sell.
Mm-hmm.
Which certainly, I think Saad falls into a similar category.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
He had incredible playoffs, but we've talked many times about how, 3 of those goals were, quite lucky. Yep.
He had 7 goals and 1 assist.
Yep.
He scored what, 14 goals during the regular season? Like, obviously is.
Yeah. 15 goals in 44 games. Avs got good value out of him.
Oh, easily.
He's on a just shy of 50-point pace in an 82-game season.
I think Saad is he should be right in that $5 million a year range.
Yep.
And again, you consider that there's just not a ton of cap space around the league. There are maybe 10 to 12 teams that are flush with space. And some of those teams, is Brandon Saad going to go take big money to play for the Devils or the Red Wings or the Sabres or the Coyotes?
Well,
I tend to think no. So some of those teams that do have a lot of cap space, you kind of just write off quickly. Because it's for the same reason why I'm kind of skeptical that why he would want to go back to Chicago. Why would he want to go to any of those teams?
Yep.
Why would he want to go to any rebuilding program? Columbus, Anaheim.
None of those teams make any sense, right?
And here's when you start talking about the $4 to $5 million player range, it probably won't be as exaggerated, as bad this offseason, but we saw last offseason very, very few of those guys got signed early. A lot of those guys went deep into the free agent market as teams tried to figure out exactly how much money they had and how they could work a player like that into their team.
Well, last year, just not a lot of multi-year deals.
Yep.
This year, I think you'll see more multi-year deals, but I do think that the AAVs are just going to be down a little bit.
Yeah.
I could see what I do think would make a lot of sense for a guy like Brandon Saad if he wanted to do this. 1-year deal, comes back to Colorado, plum situation, really good team, gets to compete, gets to play a significant role. Gets to be an important guy for a contender where he can also put up big numbers and put himself in position for a multi-year deal down the road. Because while the cap may not be going up in the next couple of years, teams are going to have more cap space because they're not going to continue to plan for the cap going up.
Yep.
They're going to plan for a stagnant cap for 5 years. Whatever they're actually planning for. And that just means just naturally more of that cap space will open up over time, and he might be able to secure a long-term deal a year from now.
Sure. Well, and every year that goes by, the NHL is going to have a better hold on exactly how long this flat cap is going to be around. Because, let's be honest, it's still very much in flux right now. 12 months ago, we were talking about, it'll be a 2 or 3 year flat cap. Now we're talking about 4 or 5.
Yeah.
In a year, who knows what that number could be.
Exactly.
So Saad is a guy where I think there's so many different things that are in play with him.
The one that they won't be able to just sign him and sign the other guys, and McCarr and all these.
They would have to do some kind of work. Something else has to go for Saad to fit.
You're losing Jonas Donskoy in expansion, and there goes $3.9 million. Give Brandon Saad $4. That's not enough.
Yeah, if you give Brandon Saad $4, you're short fitting in ELCs or Jost or something.
Right, because you are giving Jost a raise. You are giving at least $900,000 again to Connor Timmins. Those guys are getting money, so they would need to move out one more meaningful contract, whether that's Graves, Comfer, EJ, right? Whatever that other deal is, there would have to be another way. There would have to be another avenue of opening up cap space. Sure. If they wanted to move Kadri, the problem with moving Kadri is that there's no replacement. Those other cats can all be replaced internally. And if you think Alex Newhook is ready for the 2C job, then you're making a huge leap of faith. Because as we said, Tyson Jost can't take that job. And so if Alex Newhook goes into the first 25 games of the season and drowns in that role, you moved on from Nazem Kadri for iffy reasons, and you didn't do enough to replace him. I don't think you can just say, well, Alex Newhook is the plan at 2C.
I mean, it just doesn't make a ton of sense, right? Just for the record, I know there's a lot of recency bias about the Kadri's end of the season and obviously the suspension in the playoffs, but in the regular season as a whole, Kadri outproduced Brandon Saad.
Yeah.
He provided more offense to Colorado than Brandon Saad did.
All the talk about what a bad year Nazem Kadri had, and Kadri this and Kadri that, and he was selfish and he hurt the team, and he was ghost in the regular season. Guy was on pace for like a 55-point year.
Yep.
Even with him going 20 games between goals, he still produced like a madman. Like he still produced like a legit 2C.
Yeah. I don't subscribe to the get rid of Nazem Kadri game plan.
Like, look, if you're getting rid of Kadri, it's because you've done something big.
Right. That's a different conversation if you're going out and getting a big piece. But
what would it take to get Drouin to Colorado? A time machine to go back
and pick
several years to go back and get him. This is done.
Yep.
I don't know. Hard pass on Drouin. He doesn't do anything for Colorado that they need.
Drouin Dream has been dead for a couple years at least. Yeah.
Like, why would you go and do Jonathan Drouin when you have Andre Burakovsky?
Yep. They'd fill the exact same role.
Yeah. You need a more consistent, a little more physical, a little more well-rounded guy. You can get by with guys like Kadri just fine, or not Kadri, Burakovsky and Drouin just fine, but you need to surround them with some dudes.
Yep.
And putting them together, I don't think would be good. It just feels really, really soft to me.
You'd end up with nights where that line just ends up being passenger city, right?
Oh, dude, could you? I mean, Drouin on the left and Burakovsky on the right, and
that line's just a ghost on any given night. Yeah.
Then you try and put Newhook in the middle, and it's like on a bad night. That night puts up a -4 and loses you a game.
That line has two speeds: ghost or absolutely going off.
Yeah.
Nothing in between.
Right.
Kadri is a tough one
because he is going into the last year of his deal, and you're probably not re-signing him when that's over.
Yeah, it's kind of just
there is a guy like Phil Deneau that is going to be in free agency that would be super intriguing. You wonder about the offensive upside of Deneau, though. It's just kind of iffy.
Yep.
But if you end up with Danault and you end up kind of mediocre offensively at between Jost and Danault, but you end up really good defensively, that might be an okay trade.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at reshaping the way the second line functions at that point, right? Like you're probably trying to drop Landy down to the second line or something and creating a shutdown line. No, you wouldn't.
For me,
you just live with the offensive question mark there.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
look, if they had Phil Danault in the Vegas series to shut down William Karlsson's line, Colorado wins that series.
I mean, there's a lot of things Colorado could have done to win that series.
I know. That's one thing that makes me feel warm and fuzzy when I think about the frustration of how they lost that series, because it was death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about the second line, better defense, or Andre Burakovsky shows up before Game 6, they probably win that series.
I mean, pick a guy, dude.
Yep.
If Sam Girard plays just a little bit better, if Phil Grubauer plays just a little bit better,
yeah.
If Nathan McKinnon scores just one goal in 2 different games, like it was a razor thin margin in that series. It ended up being a really, really, really thin margin between them winning and losing that series. So.
And if they move on from Kadri, then going after a guy like Danault makes all the sense in the world.
Sure.
I'd be all for it. The problem is that you are bringing in very real offensive question marks with Phil Danault. Like, he's just not.
Yeah.
He's not a very good offensive player. He's okay offensively. And if you're comfortable with okay, because you're really good elsewhere. I mean, if you have Phil Danault, you move on from Kadri, whatever. If you could bring Brandon Saad back and put him with Burakovsky and then Phil Danault in the middle, you're in the money. If Alex Newhook plays on the left side next to Phil Danault and Andre Burakovsky, you're in the money.
Well, the one thing I do like about it is a little bit of flexibility, right? When you are working a player like Alex Newhook into your lineup, especially if you're trying to work him in at center, boy, would it be easy to say, oh, Newhook's hot tonight, put him up with the second line, let the offense go.
Yeah.
Real easy to drop Danault down the lineup and have him be a shutdown guy on your third or fourth line.
Yeah. And he replaces the face-offs from Kadri as well.
Yep.
And then he probably replaces Bellemare as your late game.
Send him out there to take the face-off guy, yeah.
And then you're more comfortable, maybe at that point, with a guy like Danault, you're more comfortable letting a young guy like Bowers kind of get his feet wet and get crushed in the face-off circle as a rookie, as all rookies do.
Yeah, maybe.
So don't really want to get too much further into the Phil Danault stuff right now, but he's a guy that I have my eye on.
Will be certainly interesting, but extremely hypothetical at this point of the off season.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we're just about done here. The off season is always interesting. For players that have significant value, the market really hasn't been set at all this off season.
Yeah.
So I am curious to see when the dominoes do start to fall on guys getting extended or signed of significant value. I know we saw Matt Nieto get his extension, but that's a pretty minimal deal. So we'll have to wait and see. But thank you, everybody, for watching, listening, however you consume the pod. We appreciate y'all a ton. Again, like and subscribe to the YouTube video. If you don't watch us on YouTube, highly recommend you check it out. It's the best way to catch the podcast, certainly live. And, of course, you can catch it after the fact as well. Tomorrow, we have our big DNVR 1000 show. Hope all of y'all will tune in for that. It's going to be in the evening, I believe at 5 p.m.
Yep, 5 p.m. our time.
Yep, 5 p.m. Mountain. So tune in the evening for that one. Hope all of y'all will join us on that.
And I saw a few people saying, "Oh, I'm not going to get to see it." You can always replay videos on YouTube. Even like they said, Euro Avalanche weren't going to be able to see it. You might not watch it live, but you can always find it on our YouTube channel, or you can actually find the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, wherever.
Yep, you'll be able to watch the whole thing after the fact. Just won't be able to live chat, but hope to see all y'all there with some of our guests as well. Until then, we will talk to you all later.